Hello, welcome to this parent webinar. My name is Nicky Stewart and I'll be talking to you today about Children's Mental Health Week. I am a BACP accredited counsellor. I work for MHFA England, delivering the adult and youth programme. I'm a clinical supervisor with over 13 years experience working in the field of mental health services. Today we'll be looking at children's mental health, emotional regulation, and I'll be sharing some resources with you to support you in supporting your children's mental health and wellbeing. So this week, the theme for Mental Health Week is Express Yourself. So we'll be looking today at Buzz Club on the Teams channel about how we can balance out our worries using this graphic you see here on your right. So there can be difficulties that children might be experiencing right now. And then there's also the things that they might be able to balance those out. So we know that children's thoughts and feelings can really have an outcome of their well-being and mental health. So it's important we think about what helps them to regulate and calm themselves. So let's look at some statistics here. During the last coronavirus lockdown, we had a report from Forster on behalf of Save the Children that said 76% of children miss their friends, 59% are bored, and 38% enjoyed having time at home with their family, and 13% felt lonely and 7% are scared. So there's lots of different feelings going on at home at the moment. So what is mental health? Mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which each individual realises his own potential and can cope with the normal stresses of life and can work productively and fruitfully and is able to contribute. So we can start off with positive mental health. It goes along a continuum. At the other end, it can lead to mental illness. So everybody moves up and down this continuum and we all have mental health. It's really important to normalise that. So there is stigma attached to mental health even today. So we have to be mindful that we try and break this stigma. These are sentences you might hear if you say to somebody that you're not feeling well or your mental health isn't good. But we really want to get sort of into this middle section here where it's okay to have hard days. You're not alone. It's okay to have those feelings. Take care of you. So this report was good to look at in terms of how children are experiencing mental health difficulties. In the last 3 years, it has gone up. So now today, 1 in 6 children, as of July 2020, experience mental health difficulties. This was an online Teen Tips survey. We've subscribed to Teen Tips at school, so you can have a look at this on the website. And it asked parents how they felt children's mental health is during this current lockdown. 87% of parents think that school closures have impacted their children's mental health. 58% are concerned about their self-esteem. So it's good to really sort of see your concerns echoed in the voices and other people's experiences. So what does cause children's mental health difficulties? If we look at this biopsychosocial sphere of health here, we can understand that there's lots of different factors that impact a child's mental health. So there could be some biological factors, there could be psychological as well as social. So there's no one reason why a child may experience mental health difficulties. And we have to look at the positive risk factors and the positive factors for this, protective factors. So here we have the child, the family, services around the child, life events, and any sort of societal changes. So if we think about the risk factors at the moment, we know that COVID is a risk factor in terms of isolation. And if we think about the protective factors, as long as they're at home, having a warm, secure, loving home environment, then that is a protective factors against what we're going through at the moment. So whilst we acknowledge it will impact children's mental health this period, we also have protective factors in place. So this mental health continuum is one that we use within this training at Mental Health First Aid England, and it looks at stigma running through this whole axis. So over this side of the quadrants, we have severe diagnosis, somebody that's been diagnosed with mental illness, and over here we have no diagnosis. And then we have this vertical axis that looks at maximum well-being as well as minimum well-being. So over in the top right-hand corner here, they've got a person that's got no mental illness or disorder and they've got positive mental health. But some life events could happen and then we could drop down here into the minimum mental well-being and fitness. So still no diagnosis, but not feeling you've got positive mental health. If this is prolonged and sustained down here, then we can move over to this area where we can move towards a diagnosis. But this doesn't mean there's no hope, because anybody that's here can recover and come back up to positive mental health. And this is really important to normalise that there's no fixed position on this mental health continuum. We constantly move around this. So let's think about this in terms of children's mental health. It may be that you're seeing more anxiety at the moment. It does present very differently at this present time. So you might be noticing that children are finding it hard to get to sleep. They might be feeling angry or agitated more than usual. You might be seeing some different behaviours. And they could be complaining of stomachache or headaches, or having difficulty managing their emotions. And all of these could be signs of anxiety. There's also the feelings of anger. Now, if we think about this iceberg analogy, we've used this in previous webinars. It's a really good graphic to understand what goes on underneath this waterline. So above the waterline here, we see the iceberg, the tip. So they're just getting annoyed. They don't know how to do their online work. People are getting on their nerves. They didn't ask to take toys, get out of my bedroom. But underneath this is the stuff that's hidden. They could be sad and missing their friends. There could be a lot of fear. They might get ill, you might get ill as their family. So it's good to acknowledge what's hidden underneath the waterline here. So behind the anger could be this whole array of feelings. So this is a really good graphic just to maybe show your children and ask them, what do they notice? What resonates with them? Are they feeling fearful? Are they feeling hurt? Are they feeling overwhelmed? Just check in with them and ask them how they're doing. And how are you doing as parents as well? Because we know as adults that we can't go on to help our children emotionally regulate unless we're regulated ourselves. So this is the sources of stress that we can see in our children and young people. There could be sort of emotional stressors, there could be environmental stressors, physical, and there could be some life-changing events that happen, including coronavirus. And so it's good to notice that what's causing stress in your child's life at the moment. Now, it's really important to acknowledge neurodiversity. Now, this is an umbrella term for all of these conditions that you see here. Now, Judy Singer coined the term neurodiversity in 1999, and I like the fact that it covers this whole sphere of need here. So children with special educational needs or disabilities need to be acknowledged, because they will have an increased anxiety in terms of being accessing the online learning. But then on the other side, they could also be enjoying the time away from the school and the pressures and the environment. So depending on what your child's level of need is, could mean that they have further mental health challenges, or they're feeling comfortable at home. But it's important to acknowledge that neurodiversity is part of this. So special educational needs in England, the rate of SEND support has gone up to 12.1% in this last year. And independent schools have been able to access educational healthcare plans for children. And at the moment, the current figures stand at 19,011 children with an educational healthcare plan. And these are the number of children with a different type of need with an educational healthcare plan. So we see that autistic children are at the top there with 82,847. And if we go down the list, there's quite a lot of needs there in terms of children's underlying conditions. So I like this graphic to look at how we can flip the narrative, because sometimes children with special educational needs and disabilities do look at the negatives. So they might feel that there's, we might describe somebody that's autistic as having social communication problems, being obsessive, having a difference of imagination. But if we flip that and look at it, actually, they're really good at sequencing, concentration, visual thought, and different imagination. They're very logical. So it's really important to look at the positive factors with our children with SEND. So neurodiversity can cover difficulties in organisation, memory, concentration, time, direction, perception, sequence, poor listening skills, leading to a lower self-esteem and increased anxiety or depression. So there's risk factors for children that have got neurodiversity or neurodivergent. But let's flip the narrative again. There are strengths to neurodivergence, and that is creativity, originality, determination, imaginative, empathetic, intuitive, energetic. So it's important that these children have a voice and they're heard. Their mental health needs are also there, and there can be risk factors just by having these co-occurring conditions. So we all talk about resiliency, but what is resiliency, and how are we going to help your children to become resilient and have that bounce back factor from this trauma, of the community trauma that we're experiencing at the moment? Resiliency really involves resilient thinking, managing emotions, having good connection and relationships, as well as building on those strengths that the children already have. So I like to use this graphic as a tree I come across one when I was out on one of my walks. Now this has had a real rupture here. It's been ripped out of the ground, it's been uprooted, it's disconnected. And then as we see up here, it's growing, it's flourishing. So last year I came across this during the last lockdown. I thought this is a really nice metaphor for how we're going to cope with this. So we will recover from this, we will adapt, we will grow, and we will flourish once again. But at the moment, during this third lockdown, we may be feeling this sense of being uprooted and disconnected. But there always has to be hope that we will recover and we will flourish again. So the metaphor for resilience, I really like this because it helps us understand that there's many factors to resilience. We can't just teach resiliency. We have to think about it in terms of a plane trying to get to its destination through poor weather. So let's imagine that your child is the pilot. And then the co-pilot, we can be the co-pilot, so we're the family, friends, teachers, and then the type of plane that your children flies to, more based on how they characteristics such as the age or the temperament. And if we think about the equipment available to them, when we have the pilot, the ground crew, and then we think about the severity of the weather and how long this is going to go on for. So there's many factors to helping a child develop resiliency. It's not just about the pilot. We've got to think about how we put things in place to help these children bounce back from this trauma. So as again, once we've said, resiliency is all about building strengths and looking at positive relationships, connection with your child, choices and responsibility, as well as opportunities for personal challenges and managing to focus on their emotions. It's really important they can manage emotion. So we know that staying at home while studying has been quite challenging, but it's really important we sort of look at this list of things we can do here to stay healthy. The World Health Organization have produced this graphic, and it helps us to look at are we getting enough sleep and rest, the basics. Are we having regular activity? Are we eating healthy food and deep breathing, mindfulness or meditation, staying connected, and having outdoor breaks while staying safe? So these 6 lists on this list here are really important for us to maintain that positive mental health and well-being. So again, don't ever underestimate the value of drawing with your children, singing, dancing, and other forms of creative help when expressing their feelings. It does relieve stress and it helps step away from the screens, which is really important at the moment. So have good quality time at home with them. It's really important for mental health. And in a previous webinar, we've spoken about the importance of play with children and how play can really help with those positive emotions. So if you can, help them with some language around emotions, how they're feeling, so they can name a feeling when they experience it. And I really recommend Ollie as a digital friend. So Ollie is for children aged 8 to 11. It was created by Parent Zone and funded by BBC Children in Need. It's an initiative that helps children to express themselves emotionally. So I'll go through a couple of these slides with you. So you can click on if you are a child or if you're an adult. Now I went for the adult button here. And it says, what's on your mind? And you can also personalize Ollie, so the children can choose what color the Ollie graphic is. And you can choose what subject you want to talk about. So here I've selected, I want to talk about the world. And you can choose from family, body, friends, school, internet. And then it asks you how you're feeling. How's the world making you feel? And I've put here confused. And then it gives you some responses here. So if your child has seen upsetting news, you can find time to talk about it. So it gives some advice, and there's lots of different choices here. So it's just a nice alternative to help children with their own autonomy and finding responses and helping them to emotionally regulate. So have a look at that app, and it is free, and the website address is here. So app.ollie, as you can see there, .org.uk. Okay, let's move on. So there's also this Padlet I've produced for our parents at school to help you with the resources to help your children. So there's a list here of parenting supports, managing feelings, looking at neurodiversity supports, as well as school staff. So have a look at that, and I'll put the link on the resources. So it's really important that we help our children deal with difficult feelings. So we've got to notice the feeling, name it, sit with it, and then let it go. It's really important to remind them no feeling lasts. It will move, it will pass. And the 3 R's to regulation. This is Dr. Bruce Perry's 3 R's. Now, he looked at how we can regulate our children to help them, soothe them, make them feel calm and loved. And then once they're soothed and calm, then we can relate the feelings. I know that you're upset right now. It must be hard. And then we can reason with them afterwards. This is also a lovely approach, the PACE approach. So if we think about Dr. Dan Hughes' PACE approach, he encourages us to be playful with our children. Can I join in? Let's play, let's skip. And then acceptance, just let them know they're loved no matter what. And then think about that curiosity. So I wonder how you're feeling today. Tell me about that. And then that empathy. I know you're so angry. I can help with these big feelings. So really relate that for them. So some coping skills for your children. So what do they enjoy doing? Do they like reading, breathing, labeling the feeling? Maybe some positive self-talk, playing a game. Have a look at Cosmic Yoga online. That's a really good, useful website. And artwork. Being creative is so good for mental health. Again, I really like the use of Play-Doh. It's very, it's a kinesthetic approach, so you can touch, feel, smell. It uses a lot of senses. They can shape and model a feeling. They can choose to cut it up, put it away, lock it away, put it in a box, whatever you decide to do with that feeling. It's really important to discharge it. Deep finger breathing, it's really good. So if you use your hand with this, so if you start at the thumb and help your children, so as they go up the thumb, they trace it around. So up the thumb, then you breathe in and then breathe out. Breathe in and then breathe out. In, big breath, and then breathe out. In and then out. So as you go down the hand, you're breathing in and out, and just those deep breaths sometimes are enough to calm and regulate us. So try that at home with your children or even with yourselves. 5 senses, the grounding techniques are really good ones. So 5 things you can see around you, 4 things you can reach out and touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you may be able to smell that day, and 1 thing you've tasted. So just getting in touch with your 5 senses is enough to give you a sense of grounding. Some really nice questions here to start a conversation with your children. So have a look at that graphic. I'll send around the resources for you. And self-care, remember to look after yourselves in this period because you are the grounding influence for your children. They will pick up on the feelings that you're having and they will look at that and react to that. So it's really important we keep ourselves grounded as adults. And as parents, you've got many roles at the moment. You're being their care teacher, you're looking after their needs in terms of well-being. So look after yourselves here as well. And this stress container graphic really helps us see that sometimes we can all have this emotional snapping. But this is where sometimes we feel like we're not coping. So this is because down here in the tap in the container gets stuck. So we're not letting out those stresses as they flow in. So the container size depends on what our vulnerability is. And that really helps with the stresses to flow out if you can open this tap. So remember, in time, this too shall pass. This will not last. And it's really good for us to keep that level of hope. So as we think about mental health, this Children's Mental Health Week, it's really important to get in touch with your own mental health to support your children. And this theme this year is express yourself. So really remember that. And I know that we're doing some dressing up this week on Teams and looking at online supports at Buzz Club. So engage with your children. Start a conversation about mental health. We all have mental health. It's really important we engage with that conversation during this difficult period. So thank you so much for coming along today. I do remain available for our community, so please check in with me. My name's been Nicky Stewart, and it's been my delight to be here with you today. And I look forward to connecting again next week at our next webinar. And here's a list of your resources. Thank you for coming along today.